Isn't it wild to think that humanity has been around for thousands of years and we still have mysteries that linger in our own past? Welcome back to the Hive, my fellow bumblebees. It is I, your guest host with the most, Amanda McKnight, aka VampX13, but you can call me Vampy. Today we're here to revisit some of these mysteries that still cause debates among scientists and archaeologists, even now in 2023, as we revisit the top 10 ancient mysteries experts still haven't solved. What do you think is the world's greatest mystery? Number 10. Pyramids. Were they built by aliens? Probably not. But just how exactly were the marvelous buildings constructed? Well, that is honestly still a point of contention today, although we do at least have theories. For a long time it seemed like a main component of many theories revolving around the construction of the pyramids was a lot of people who were basically forced to work very, very hard. However, these days even that component has been called into question in regards to people being forced into constructing them anyways. But we did probably need a lot of people. They were just probably people that were paid. What we are learning more and more about is just how advanced Egyptian building techniques were even before they constructed the Great Pyramid of Giza. A few years ago, archaeologists discovered a suspended ramp at Hatnub, a rock quarry in Egypt that had stairs on either side of it. And based on holes in those stairs, it seems as though an advanced rope and pulley system was basically used to help pull stone up the ramp. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Bumblebee, if you love learning history with us, be sure to let us know by clicking that like button. Number 9. Galactic Pictionary. The Nazca Lines are a group of geoglyphs in the Nazca Desert, located in South Peru. They get their name from a group who created them, a people known as the Nazca. But why were they created? The geoglyphs, which were created using shallow trenches excavated into the desert floor, are so massive that they are only visible from an aerial view. However, some theorize that these lines were actually created to help travelers find their way, not while they were soaring over the desert because we didn't have planes back then, but from a distance you could see the geoglyphs in slopes and valleys, which would then help travelers know where they were and where they were heading, like a giant man-made landmark or like a sign on the highway if you prefer, but just it's a picture. Either that or this is the largest scale game of what I can only imagine would be Cosmic Pictionary that I have ever seen. If we're playing Pictionary with aliens, I don't know. Number 8. Devil's Triangle. A place of history, of myth, of urban legend, and a literal place on a map. The Bermuda Triangle is, as of yet, still an unexplained, seemingly dangerous part of the western North Atlantic Ocean, where many ships, aircrafts, and people have mysteriously disappeared without a single trace. Granted, disappearing without a trace could probably happen to you anywhere in the world, and yet the Bermuda Triangle has become iconic for its affiliation with this kind of phenomenon. Many have attributed tropical storms as the reason behind the disappearances, or perhaps it could be that, the magnets in that area are messing with people's compasses, or just human error could be to blame for all of the disappearances that have occurred there. And skeptics also like to point out that there isn't a ton of evidence to suggest that the Bermuda Triangle is a patch of ocean that is really any more dangerous than any other part of our oceans. I mean, the oceans in general are pretty dangerous. If you're going on the ocean, it's also deep, so if you disappear, we may never find you again, depending on how deep it is, or if the water carried you somewhere else. Number 7. God's Trident. The Nazca Lines aren't the only mysterious giant geoglyphs that we have. In fact, they aren't even the only ones that we have in Peru, apparently. This giant geoglyph, which covers about 600 feet from top to bottom, was carved into the hillside that overlooks Pisco Bay. It is known as the Paracas Candelabra. While there are a few stories about why it was created and what it means, no one knows its true origin or even how old it is. It is believed to either be another geoglyph that was used for navigation, this time as a navigational tool and landmark for sailors, or it is a symbol that is meant to represent God's trident, an item that belonged to the one who created all things in the universe. Number 6. Lost City of Atlantis. While we still don't know today if this mythical city exists, another city may have actually inspired its myth. That would be the Egyptian port of Thonis Heracleion. This city was celebrated as a major trading hub before Alexandria existed and overtook it, which would be easy to do when you consider that Thonis Heracleion actually no longer exists today. It's believed around the 2nd century BC that the entire city fell into the sea, a la the legend of the lost city of Atlantis. We don't really know what triggered the sinking of Thonis Heracleion, but we do know what caused it to sink: soil liquefaction. It's theorized that natural disasters may have contributed to that process, which ultimately caused the city to sink. Eventually, it was fully submerged underwater underwater and it would not be rediscovered until the early 2000s. Number 5. Giant's Cups? We also known as the Plain of Jars, this mysterious landscape in Laos is adorned with thousands of giant stone jars. How they got there and why they are there is still a mystery today. Excavation and research sites for the jars have been limited due to many of the jars happening to be in areas that are deemed unsafe to visit as a result of an American campaign during the Vietnam War. Legend has it that the jars were used as giants' wine glasses. However, based on the areas that we actually have been able to survey and excavate, archaeologists theorize that the giant jars are actually burial sites. Though why they were placed here and how they were constructed still remains largely a mystery to us, even today. What we do know is that the jars are old, with the oldest one yet estimated to be placed as early as 1240 BC. Number 4. Maui of Easter Island. What's really wild to me is how with each mystery that I look up, there are just a bunch of articles that claim that, these mysteries have been solved. History is so fascinating because it shifts and changes depending on the newfound information we happen to get in. Case in point, the Maui. Although, that being said, any article that claims to have the answer to a mystery that has existed for hundreds of years, I'm obviously gonna always be skeptical of. With the Maui, the mystery is how these giant stone statues were moved into place. What most people had thought was that these statues were actually waiting even to be moved, so they weren't even in the place they were supposed to be. But a recent study from a few years ago suggested that some in the rock quarry, which were submerged, were not awaiting to be transported, but were in essence planted there, in a sense, to encourage the fertility of the land and to maintain and safeguard the sacredness of the quarry they were in. Number 3. The Dial of Destiny, or as it is known in the real world, the Antikythera mechanism. This 2,000-year-old device was found in an ancient Greek shipwreck, and based on how mysterious it is, it's no wonder that it went on to inspire the artifact of legend that is the focus for the recent Indiana Jones film, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The Antikythera mechanism is believed to be the first ever computer to have existed. Although it's not as spiffy as the computer, phone, TV, or tablet you are likely watching this video on, this mechanism would have been impressive thousands of years ago because it could automatically track time. Yeah, basically it's a big old watch. So, why the mystery? What's so cool about a big old watch? Well, because nothing else of its like has been found to have existed in this time period. In fact, nothing on a similar scale to this would even be created for another 1,000 years in history. So how did the Greeks come up with it? How did they invent it? And why have we not seen more devices like this from its time period? It's just very mysterious that we find this piece of tech that's so advanced but so old. Number 2. The ancient book no one understands. Oh, this one's super interesting. The Voynich manuscript has been carbon dated back to the 1400s, and it originated in Central Europe. Among its pages are pictures of plants, which no one seems to recognize, and a language that no one recognizes or understands. The closest we've come to understanding the text is with the suggestion that it is written in coded Hebrew, but even then, when translated based on that assumption, about 80% of the text is still nonsensical. So even when they were like, oh my gosh, we cracked the code, it's coded Hebrew, they translated it and they were like, wait, but this doesn't even make any sense. So is that right? It fits, but it doesn't make sense. So we still don't understand it. Number 1. Stonehenge. We have theories for why and how Stonehenge was created, but we don't have exact answers. Recently, in a 2022 study, it was suggested that the Stonehenge may have been created to be used as a calendar. Professor Timothy Darville of Bournemouth University noticed that it could have been built based on the solar year. Although this calendar wouldn't exactly be accurate to our calendar today, they wouldn't match up, as back when Stonehenge was built, weeks were 10 days long and there were more months in a year. In fact, Darville believes that the calendar could even connect Stonehenge to ancient Egypt, as the calendar in question originated in the eastern Mediterranean, where it was used by Egypt around 2700 BC. If this is true, it would line up with the meaning behind other similar sites that have been found and are also believed to be calendars. However, it should be noted that even this is just one of many theories. In fact, as of 2023, another study conducted by 2 scientists who specialize in ancient astronomy suggests that Stonehenge was instead a memorial to the dead. And they were basically like, no way it's a calendar. So every time something comes out where someone's like, we've solved it, someone comes along and goes, no, this is what it is. That's about it. I'll see you in the future. And skeptics also like to point out that there isn't a ton of evidence to suggest that the Bermuda Triangle is a patch of ocean that is really any more dangerous than any and skeptics. And skeptics also like to point out that there isn't a ton